Hey everyone, and welcome to Untamed Academy, where trainers and owners meet to discover how to improve their communication, sharpen their skills, and master the craft. And class is in session. I'm your host, Mariano Alvarez. I'm a dog trainer, business owner of Untamed Dog Co, and co-host of the Dog Trainers podcast. And today, I want to go over my 3-step guide on how to teach like a pro. Because you see, dog training is a funny field. Ambitious trainers spend tons of time researching new training techniques, tons of time looking into how to improve their technical hands-on skills with dogs, yet they neglect the skills required to improve their ability to teach. And this creates a sort of bottleneck effect where we gain more info, yet we have a harder and harder time sharing it in a way that's helpful and meaningful to clients. So today, I'm going to go over my 3-step guide on how to master your teaching skills, and we're going to start with a quick overview. Those 3 skills are going to be how to plan, how to teach, and how to review. So let's start with the first one. Let's talk about planning like a pro. Planning is all about setting clear goals. That means you have to define the end result. What skill or behavior do you want the dog or owner to master? Or what behavior does the dog absolutely need to stop doing in order for this to be successful? Once you've defined the end result, now you get to divide it into small, manageable steps from A to Z. It's amazing how often you come across a training program where the trainers know more or less what their process is. I like to teach this and this and this in that order, or I like to work with XYZ tools and methodologies, but they couldn't necessarily tell you why, or they couldn't necessarily tell you why this particular dog, this particular owner needs this particular plan of action. So make sure that you start at the end. What do I want? Just ask yourself very simply, or ask the owners very simply, if you got absolutely everything you wanted out of training, if this program was perfect, the dog would look like what? And don't be afraid to be specific when you ask that question. Well, the dog would be able to do this, and the dog would be able to do that, and the dog would stop jumping on my guests, and XYZ. But you've got to set clear goals in order to turn a goal into a plan. And my next step for how to plan, once you've created the plan, share the plan. Give owners a syllabus outlining the steps and expected progress. And it doesn't have to be a tangible syllabus. You don't have to make a printed handout like your history teacher used to. I'm simply talking about when you know, they should know. Here's what the end result should look like. Here's my assumption more or less on how we're going to go about getting there, and make sure that they understand that. Why? Because while you absolutely don't want owners to jump ahead too much, we all know that there is a middle ground where I want you to focus on what you're doing right now, not what you're going to do next, but at the exact same time, knowing a little bit about what I'm going to do next helps me paint how or what I'm doing right now. You would like to know kind of 2-3 steps ahead of time. As long as you can keep them focused on the skill at hand, I find that they like knowing a little bit more of what's to come next because it helps them plan, it helps them prep. Okay, so make sure that you share the plan with the owners. And just as important as sharing the plan, make sure that you establish a workflow, not just for this lesson, but for every lesson. I have found personally that establishing a healthy workflow has probably been one of the single, if not the single most game-changing piece of how I do lessons with owners. And what I mean by establishing a workflow, it looks something like this. I tell them in the beginning, today, here's how we're going to do this. Let me explain to you really quick what we're going to do because I want you to practice. The point of all of this should be you being able to do this with your dog, so we're going to spend most of the time practicing. However, through the course of practice, or even in the course of my explanation, you may have simple questions. I don't want you to stress about that. I want you to simply hold on to them for just a couple minutes because 1 or 2 times throughout this lesson, I'm going to make time for us to answer questions. And if you like this workflow, then what we're going to do is we're going to stick with this same workflow through the course of all of our lessons together. And now owners know what to expect and when to expect it, and that helps them focus. If you've ever been in a position to where you're listening to what someone's saying, and they say something that you want to clarify, you want to ask a question, but you don't know if now is the appropriate time, then you spend the next 2 minutes stressing about, should I raise my hand? Should I not? Now you're worried about asking the question so much so that you weren't listening for the last 2 minutes. As long as somebody tells you up front, hey guys, there will be time for questions, in 10 minutes. Then you go, okay. And your brain files it into the back of your mind. Okay, I'm going to keep listening. And when time comes up for questions, I'm going to ask it. So make sure that you establish a workflow where owners know what's coming in the lesson. And I wanted to finish this point of sharing the plan with something that Michael Ellis said to me, which was, incredible. But Mike, of course, is an incredible teacher. I think he's the best teacher in dog training, and I'd love to be like this one day. But he told us very simply, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them. And then at the end, tell them what you told them, because it's all about review, right? Tell them what you're going to tell them means share the plan with the owners. And my final step for planning like a pro is to be flexible with your plan. Understand that no plan is ever going to be perfect. Be ready to adjust based on the dog's needs, based on challenges that the owners may have. And what's most important about this part, make sure that you reassure owners that it's normal to revisit or adapt plans as needed. You don't want them to feel a sense of stress. Am I doing something wrong? Is my dog like the most stubborn dog you've ever met? People think like this, right? We've all heard these things. Assure them, no, you guys, plans change. It's fine. Don't stress. Don't freak out. Just stick to the plan. Even as we evolve it, stick to the amended plan. So just to revise this really quick, my first step, how to plan like a pro. Set clear goals, and then share the plan with the owner once you've made one. And finally, be flexible with the plan. Now we're going to move on to step 2, how to teach like a pro. Now we're talking the actual teaching portion. We're going to start this with find your teaching voice. What I mean by that is to develop a natural, confident tone that feels authentic to you. I don't want you to sound robotic or kind of distant. And make sure that you're speaking clearly, make sure that you're speaking slowly so that owners can follow along. When I say speak clearly, I mean, of course, don't jumble your words or talk too fast, but I also mean use simple language. You don't need to impress people with buzzwords that they don't understand anyway. It just makes them feel lost and disconnected. So be simple, be clear with your language, and make sure that you're speaking slowly enough that people can follow along when they're learning something new. And then my final tip for finding your teaching voice, avoid rambling, avoid over-explaining. Stick to your key points, make your point concisely, and then move on. Because when it comes to teaching, you've got to prioritize practice. The whole point of the lesson, the whole point of them coming to you is so that they can practice with their own dog, but with you under your guidance so that you could give them advice, so that you can help them adjust. But the owners need to be able to practice. So when you're explaining things, explain the what and why in just a few minutes. Show them really quick so that they have a visual demonstration. And then get the owner straight to practicing with their dog as quickly as possible. They need to spend the majority of the time hands-on with their own dog, because it doesn't matter what you can do with the dog. It matters what they can do with the dog. That's how you ensure long-term success, right? So just to recap this, my step 2 for teaching. Find your teaching voice, be clear, be simple, be natural and confident, but avoid talking too much. Teaching is about practice. They need to practice over and over and over until they cannot get it wrong. And your job at that point is to offer little helpful pieces of guidance and advice along the way. Yeah, you're doing great. Just change this piece for me. Awesome. Now change that piece for me. Perfect. Now rep that out until we're done. Get that into that muscle memory ASAP, right? Prioritize practice. Now, step 3 for teaching like a pro is all about review. What do I mean by that? At the end of the lesson, tell them what you told them. Recap what you've covered. Summarize the main points, the important pieces. That's so helpful to give people just a quick refresher. Why? Because they were so focused on drilling and moving and when do I give the treat and all this other stuff. Make sure that you simply recap it for them. You guys, the really important pieces of today are this, this, this. And then once you've done that, make time for questions, make time for clarification, address any confusions. In fact, I would argue making time for questions is also right up there with establishing a workflow that helped me improve as a dog trainer. Why? Because most dog trainers that struggle, they talk too much and then the owners don't get to practice enough. The reason most dog trainers struggle and talk too much is because they just want to make really sure that they hit all of the important information. And I get it. There's nothing wrong with that. That makes complete sense. But the easy way to not talk too much and overdo it, give a quick, simple explanation, knowing full well, and the owner will know full well because you've told them. At the end, if you still have questions, I'm going to make time to sit down and just focus on your questions. Just knowing that, both of you knowing that there's going to be time for clarification later, allows you the confidence to not feel like you have to over-explain everything 100% like a dictionary. Just get the when, what, why out of the way, then get to practicing. You're going to make time for questions later. That's an absolute game changer. Make sure that you do that. And then the final piece of review, give homework. And what I really mean by give homework is most dog trainers give homework. Give homework that is relevant to the task at hand. If you've ever felt as a dog trainer or as any type of coach that coaches any type of client, you've told people what to do and they don't do it. Most of the time, it's because they don't see how what you've asked them to do is relevant to what they need to be able to do. You have to be able to give them homework that is simple enough that they're likely to succeed, of course, but that is also real-world applicable enough that they can see in their own mind so that they can draw their own internal motivation. Oh, that's why I should practice this with my dog. That's how this makes that issue better. Make sure that the homework you give people is at least as close as you can to being right on the money as possible while still being simple, while still being safe and repeatable, because that's what homework is. Somebody who wants to learn how to box, I wouldn't be giving them homework that has nothing to do with hitting a punching bag. I'm also not going to have them spar right away, but there is a middle ground. It's got to be applicable enough. Make sure the homework is applicable enough, right? And those are my 3 tips, you guys. We want to plan, we want to teach, and we want to review. If you do these things and do them well and practice each and every one of them, you'll be teaching like an absolute pro in no time. Thank you so much, you guys. This concludes our class here at Untamed Academy. Please let me know what you think. I'd really appreciate your feedback on this, and you can send that to me on Instagram at Untamed Dog Co, as well as at Dog Trainers Podcast. And if you found this episode helpful, then please share it with others who might also find it helpful. My name is Mariano Alvarez. This is Untamed Academy. Class dismissed. Thanks for being with us.